All right, welcome back to PFT PM. Joining us now live from Tampa. You got there yesterday. It's a different week. Shireen and I aren't there. Peter is. It's Peter King of NBC Sports. Peter, how different is the experience there than it's been in past years?
It's just so quiet. I mean, when I got here yesterday, Mike, it was really a ghost town. You drive into the hotel where I'm staying here and all the big downtown hotels. And I had to go looking. I got here at noon, and I had to go looking for a valet to take the keys to the car. I mean, I got to do something with the car, and it's just a very different week. And today I was over at the media center, and there's 160 places in 4 separate media rooms over there. I'm there at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. There are 7 people total working in the media center. Seven. And so it's just going to be a different year. I mean, there's going to be 78 reporters in the press box. Normally there's 600. So it's a different world, and you just have to take it that way.
Peter, we've both been to a ton of Super Bowls, and Roger Goodell said yesterday that he expected Tampa to get special consideration for the next Open Super Bowl, which is 3 years away. But in all your experiences of covering all these Super Bowls, where does Tampa rank as a Super Bowl site for you?
I mean, I think it's a good site. I don't think it's not New Orleans. It's not, I mean, always thought San Diego was fabulous. And, Tampa Bay, I think, is going to get hurt in the future by, L.A. rejoining the mix. I mean, at some point, Vegas is going to get a Super Bowl, at least one, and maybe more than that. So, but I do think that this market absolutely deserves to, I'm not even saying jump the line, cut the line, but I've got some good friends down here who are in business, and they were telling me today, I had coffee with one of them this morning, and he was telling me that basically it's 75, 80% of the business that they expect from a normal Super Bowl. That's how much it's off. So I think the NFL, especially because, the Glazer family, they always do these things for owners. Okay. And I think the Glazer family is probably feeling the heat, amiable heat from a lot of people in Tampa who are just making no money off this Super Bowl.
You mentioned 78 reporters will be in the press box at the game. All year long, reporters haven't been allowed in the locker room. I assume that's still the case, and I think of some of the great stories you've harvested over the years in the locker room after the game. What's your plan for getting to the bottom of the key play, the key moment, the key drive this year?
Mike, I hate to say it, but I'm the only person in Tampa here on Friday night who's really depressed. I mean, because last year I sat with Andy Reid in his office, and he drew up on a piece of paper 2-jet chip wasp. And it's funny, I got to Kansas City on my training camp trip, my very abbreviated one this year, and went and got a cheeseburger at Andy Reid's favorite place, Town Topic. And the guy in front of me in line had a T-shirt that said 2-jet chip wasp. And so I'm thinking to myself, hey, I had something to do with that T-shirt. But it's just, I don't know, Mike. I'm not optimistic, but we'll just have to see what happens. It's going to be a very tough night to try to really get some insight that people really need. And I'm rooting for myself, but I'm a little dubious.
Peter, you got to ask Roger Goodell a question yesterday at his press conference, as you normally do. What was your biggest takeaway from that press conference yesterday?
That Roger Goodell cannot do anything about the owners not hiring a significant number of minority coaches. As I said to Goodell at the press conference, look, the Rooney Rule was invented in 2003. And in 2003, there were 3 black coaches in the NFL. And in 2021, there will be 3 black coaches in the NFL. Now, obviously, Robert Saleh and Ron Rivera are minority coaches who are not black. And that's obviously a good thing to have more minority representation. But the NFL owners talk a very good game and simply don't deliver. And to think that I'm not one of those who say the only candidate is Eric Bieniemy or the only candidate is Todd Bowles, but they're excellent candidates. And there's other excellent candidates like Byron Leftwich and Jim Caldwell and Leslie Frazier. And, the owners have to step up to the plate. There's only so many times that Roger Goodell could slap them all in the head and say, what is wrong with you? And why aren't you doing a better job in minority hiring, particularly when it comes to black coaches?
Peter, the slap's got to come from the outside if it's ever going to get the attention of the NFL. I was talking to Coach Dungy earlier today, and I told him if I was practicing law and I was representing a plaintiff who claimed that he did not get a head coaching job based upon racial bias, I said, I would say I don't care about the process. Show me the result. Look at the result. Time after time, right. It's like flipping a coin 1,000 times in a row and it keeps coming up heads. At a certain point, the result proves the bias. And he told me that was Cyrus Mary's argument back when they adopted the Rooney Rule. That's what he used to squeeze the NFL into passing the Rooney Rule. That rule was passed under the threat of litigation. And I'm convinced, Peter, until there is a viable threat of litigation, they're not going to take this seriously.
Well, Mike, I'll tell you that, Steve Wyche of NFL Network, Jim Trotter as well, have been banging the drum that the group, the core of coaches, the black assistant coaches are as depressed as they ever have been. And I can tell you that last weekend when that discussion turned to one of the new coordinators for an NFL team, that, in talking to that coordinator, I can just tell you that he just about has given up. And I don't want to name names because we were off the record, but in essence, I do think that there are an awful lot of good coaches in the NFL right now who have given up on a dream of ever being head coaches in the NFL.
Peter, tomorrow we have the awards are going to be announced, and also the Hall of Fame, which you and I both participated in that 2.5 weeks ago. And surprisingly, they've kept this pretty much under wraps so far. But what are your expectations for the Hall of Fame and the announcement tomorrow night?
Shireen, I think there's going to be a surprise or two. I don't know what they are. Quite honestly, I don't want to know. I simply don't want to know because the Hall of Fame wants this to be a secret. I have not talked to people, to other voters on the committee. I don't want to know who they voted for. We'll see when it comes out. I'm probably a little naive. Probably it will get leaked. But I will say this. I think that obviously Peyton Manning is going to get in. And then after that, I would say in order, it goes Charles Woodson and then Calvin Johnson. And then it is anybody's guess. In my opinion, just my sense, I think that John Lynch has gotten an awful lot of support both last year and this year. I think he's a very good candidate. And the one candidate that I think kind of came out of nowhere to me that I think is very interesting is Clay Matthews Sr., who had such a great career. And it's unbelievable. This is his last year eligible as a modern era finalist. And it's the first year he's ever had his case discussed in the room. And I think his case is extremely strong. And personally, for those who don't understand this, if you don't get in as a modern era finalist, what happens is you get into the senior pool. And there are 100, 120, 130 really good candidates in the senior pool. And I don't mean to be morbid, but Clay Matthews could die before his case is ever brought up again.
Drew Pearson is the senior candidate this year. Peter Shireen presented him. And look, this is the separate category where it's one guy, it's up or down. It feels like the momentum is always in favor of the guy getting in because otherwise It's a wasted spot. Any reason to think he's not going to get in?
No, I would expect Drew Pearson, in the senior committee. I would expect Bill Nunn, the Steelers scout, in the contributors committee, and I would expect Tom Flores in the coaches committee. I think they all have very good chances because, as you say, Mike, basically 11 voters would have to vote against them. They only need 80% to get in. And I don't mean only, but most of the time when you get to that level, you are going to get at least 38 voters voting for you.
And Peter, we have the awards tomorrow night too. We think Aaron Rodgers is probably going to win it. Alex Smith seems like a lock for comeback player. Any awards that you think we could see a little curveball coming up?
Shireen, I think there's a distinct lack of drama this year.
Yeah.
And look, nobody, I hate to say it, nobody really cares who's offensive player of the year. It really doesn't matter. And Mike, it doesn't matter because it's a weird vote. It's a weird vote. It just is. Derrick Henry I would think, is going to win that.
Yeah.
He's the 8th person ever to rush for 2,000 yards in a season. I'm like everybody else. I don't want to double down on my MVP, which was Aaron Rodgers. And I don't want to double down and have my offensive player be Aaron Rodgers. Give it to somebody else. And that's a weird thing. I wish we would do something about that, quite honestly, in those votes. But, Chase Young is almost certain, I would think, to be the defensive rookie. The offensive rookie, Justin Herbert, followed by Justin Jefferson. And then, obviously, Alex Smith, comeback player of the year. Now, I do think the coach of the year has some drama. I voted for Kevin Stefanski, but I think it could be any one of a number of coaches. But beyond that, I don't see the drama this year, Shireen.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Stefanski. I think he nailed it down when he got into the playoffs the final week, and the Dolphins with Brian Flores didn't. I think that's the difference maker. Peter, before we let you go, what's the itinerary? What's the schedule? What are you going to do over the next couple of days in this crazy different experience in Tampa?
I'm going out to dinner with a few buddies tonight, but tomorrow, socially distant. But tomorrow, I'm going to sit right here in my little hole, and I'm going to try to get about 3,500 words done for my column on Monday. There's really, Mike, it's so strange. There's like nothing on the agenda. You easily could fly in here on Sunday morning and it would be fine. But it's just a different year. I had a good conversation today with Alan Sills about the future and about what they've learned that I'm going to write about for my column on Monday. And I think what's so interesting right now as we look at it is that Roger Goodell said this yesterday, and Alan Sills said it today, basically, Peter, I'm not getting cocky. We got another game, and it's the biggest game of the year. So, let's pat ourselves on the back on Monday and not today.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.